While we got people joining in.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Jane Atkinson. I'm coming to you live from Wealthy Speaker University, where we run programs to help you catapult your speaking business. Today, we're here with storytelling coach and columnist for the Dallas Morning News, Dave Lieber. Thank you. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, Jane.
Glad you're here. You're in the newsroom. This is so cool. We also have running our Periscope for us today, Jen McDonough, she's the community manager for the Wealthy Speaker University. So you all will see a lot of Jen now. And actually, Jen and Dave and I will all be in Dallas, Texas on January 29th and 30th. And we'll give you a little bit more information about that. We have a really exciting two-day event coming up. So, Dave.
Yeah,
I know
I'm already in Dallas.
I know, you're there. We're coming to you. So I know there are many important ideas with reference to storytelling. Dave, being a writer every day, this is your life. You probably, right. I'm sometimes always nervous when you read my stuff. I know there are so many important ideas. What do you think the top 3 elements of great stories really is?
Well, I'm gonna skip past the obvious ones, which is that every story has to have a beginning and a middle and an end, and every story has a hero and a villain. And we'll just go past that and accept that as a truth. And I think you have to have a scene-by-scene construction, number 1. And you have to have dialogue, what's called dialogue in full, number 2. And number 3 would be a strong point of view told through the eyes of a particular character. So those are the 3 elements that I guess I would start with you.
Okay. So, Jen, before we dive into scene by scene, is there anything you want to tell us? So sometimes Jen has people talking to us on Periscope. I just want to make sure we acknowledge them.
We have a couple people joining in, Sir Charlie. I believe it's good to see you guys live.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So scene by scene construction. What do you mean by that?
Well, when you tell a story, you have to tell it through the scenes, like in a movie, as opposed to just the way you tell your friend. You say, I went to the store yesterday and it was really kind of cool and I bought an ice cream cone. No, that's the way you tell it to a friend. But the way you tell it in a speech or in a training session, or as a coach or any kind of communicator, is you actually set the scene. So I'm in the store, in the present tense. I'm in the store. I think I want an ice cream cone. I'm looking around and I see what I want over there and I say to the man, so you actually put the listener or the reader into the center of the action. And one of the ways you do that is with scenes, and you do it in present tense, then you automatically make it immediate, like a movie, like they're there. Past tense, I always say, is like for has-beens. Present tense is for storytelling perfectionists, So you pick a scene, your opening scene, like in a movie or a TV show or in a novel, and you set it, and you make the listener feel like they're actually in the scene with you.
Nice.
And it's very cinematic, because that's the way the brain wants to see,
right,
feel, as opposed to just hearing the rational facts or the bullet points of a situation. They want to be with you right there in the drama.
Right, and you want to paint the picture for them so that they can kind of imagine what it is that you're talking about. Love it,
right.
Love it,
right.
Love it.
That's easier said than done. People don't think in scenes. Screenwriters think in scenes. So when you start to figure out what your message is, then you have to say, how am I going to turn it into a scene? How am I going to put the people right there so they feel like they're with me, eavesdropping on the situation as it actually unfolds?
Nice. Okay, so you mentioned something about kind of when you come out to the stage, and I'm kind of going a little bit off script here.
It's okay.
When you first come out onto the stage, are the first words out of your mouth planned, or is it just what's going on in the, great to be here in Chicago today?
Well, I usually do the great to be here in Chicago today, but I would never ever say it like that, because that's what every other speaker does, I think, and I want to be different from them. So what I do is I hear what's happened in the room before I got there, before I stood up at the lectern, and then I actually make a reference to it. Like, for example, before I would go into my opening scene, I would establish simpatico with my audience and let them know that I'm paying attention to what's going on in the room, and I would say something like, hey, I am so happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. And the reason is because I got to meet Moose by the door. And Moose is the most popular guy, and they go, oh, he knows who Moose is.
Yeah.
So I want to reference something, or sometimes I'll say, wow, you guys are really diving deep into your ethics code. I know that you guys spent a half an hour on this ethics code, and it's kind of pushed me back a little bit. I want to tell you how impressed I am that you take ethics so seriously. So I've acknowledged what they've been doing and who they are, and then I launch into I take a breath and I start my play. It's a play to me, in a sense.
So are you willing to divulge with us what the first, say, 2 lines of your play might be? Okay, I'd love to hear it.
Well,
I probably have heard it before, but I'd
I'm
like
sure
to
you
hear it
have.
again.
I guess my standard go-to is something that everybody really likes, and I say to the Texas audience that I say, I'm not a native Texan,
Right.
but I'm here today to celebrate meeting of Texas with you, but I'm not from here. And people, when I moved here in the summer of 93, and don't ever move to Texas in the summer of any year, they ask you a lot of questions because they want to get to know you. And the first question they ask you, they say, boy, where are you from? And then I use that to make fun of the way that Texans talk to me. The next question would be, what church do you go to?
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually have the dialogue where the old Texan says to the New Yorker, me, where are you from? What church do you go to? And I act it out. So the very first thing is really that scene, that dialogue between me and the elderly Texan who has to deal with me as I've moved here.
Do you want to share your punchline with us?
Well, yeah, the punchline is, so I set it up and I say, boy, where are you from? And I tell them I'm from New York. And then I ask them, then they say, well, what church do you go to? And I tell them I'm Jewish, and they have a fit when they find out I'm Jewish because they're not used to that. And then they ask me, what my wife does, and I lay out that I'm divorced. They're really depressed, and it's a love story, so that sets it up. And then I talk about, they ask me if I have any kids, because Texans are just very nosy. They want to connect with me. And then I say, no kids. And then the punchline of it is, so these 4 folks had to put up with me as a newspaper columnist, and I was covering Republican, conservative, Baptist, married Native Texans, and none of them wanted a liberal, divorced, Democratic New York City Jew as their. And so I've created this conflict, between the yin and the yang that immediately puts the audience a little bit on edge. How does this Yankee Jewish guy survive in Baptist Texas? And it's pretty universal,
It's so good. You have so much great story there. Jen, you have somebody weighing in on Periscope?
Yeah, Sir Charles asked, or Charlie, I apologize for the name of your friends, asked, can you dive into it a little bit deeper on why it's so bad to talk past some stories?
You faded a little bit. The question is what again?
Basically, why is it bad to talk in past tense when it comes to
past tense?
Well, okay, it's a great question because it's not really bad. It's good enough, but I don't think good enough is what we want. We want better, best, great. And so present tense immediately puts the listener right there. So I would say something like, I'll start freshing. It's 2005. It's a sunny day in May. I can still feel the heat on my face. I'm walking towards a store to buy myself some ice cream. As opposed to, I went in 2005 to buy ice cream. So you're with me. And, movies take place generally in the present tense, unless they're flashbacks. And we borrow this from movies and from a genre of nonfiction writing called the New Journalism, which is Tom Wolfe practices and Gates Leese and a lot of these great writers. And they taught us to put the reader in the center of the action.
I love it. You see the difference. That's really cool. So
before you go on,
Jane,
I'll say, so when you write out your story, generally what people do is they write it out in the past tense. And so then you go back and you change the was's to is. You change the verbs that end in ed to ing. So instead of I went, it's I'm going. And you just change all the tenses from past to present. Mm-hmm. That's all.
And the word imagine in front of it all allows you to kind of think about what that might look like. So imagine, if you were to, so my beginning is imagine you're having the perfect day in your life as a professional speaker, an expert who speaks, and blah, blah, blah. And I take people on an imagination sequence that is very descriptive. Maybe I'll get you to help me rewrite it when I come see you in Dallas, Dave, because I've been doing it for a little while now. And but it's really all about, so I make that particular story all about them. What do you think about them versus you? Making it about your audience versus
Yeah.
yourself.
I think my favorite word as a speaker is you, Y-O-U. And I go to that word whenever I can, because as you know, when you're a speaker, it's really not about the speaker, it's about the audience. And so the you word lets you jump in and do that. And I use that word in my stories in the newspaper a lot.
Right.
My old newspaper, they wouldn't let me use the word you. So I come to this newspaper, the Dallas Morning News, and nobody has that rule. And I'm using you all the time because it's a direct conversation with
You're
a reader, even though
engaging.
they're reading a news. Yeah.
Yeah, you're engaging with your readers. That makes perfect sense to me.
It's a wonderful word. You know, I think the word you is even more important than the word I in the engagement sharing era that we now live in.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, if anybody's looking, they'll see that you are actually in the newsroom. I could see the Dallas Morning News over your shoulder. So
Yeah.
it's a hub, it's a beehive of activity in there.
Well, they're on deadline, so they're all work. I got photographers over here. I got reporters over there. And I got editors over there. There's a lot of people here right now. So.
Now, Dave, be honest with us. Do you normally wear a tie to work every day?
On Mondays I do, because I do an NBC at noon on the noon news. I do an NBC thing.
Okay.
And I have like 3 minutes, so I always get dressed up on Mondays.
Okay.
I normally would take it off by now, but you know,
Special.
Yeah.
We're special. Okay.
It doesn't bother you because I can take it off.
No, it doesn't bother me.
Okay.
It's fine. Okay,
reporters don't wear suits and ties to work. If I showed you the wardrobe.
We were just talking, it's business on top and it's party down below. Normally we just have sweatpants on. Okay, so let's talk about dialogue in full.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Tell me more.
So that's a really key device to get people to lock into your present tense story scene setting. When you say, I talked to the man and I asked him for money and he said no, that's the descriptive way of saying it. But then when you say, so I go up to this guy and I look him dead in the eye and I say, sir, can you give me some money? And he says, I don't know who you are. Why would I give you any money? Well, because if you don't, my pregnant wife is about to give birth right here in the middle of the street and I need money for a taxi. So you actually act out the both sides of the dialogue. As opposed to just saying that you talk to somebody, you actually show. Remember how we always talk about show, not tell? What I'm sharing with you, Jane, is how to show and not tell. These are the secrets to show and not tell, which is something that a lot of people have a hard time getting their arms around.
Right.
So a lot of times you're not actually there. I don't mean to interrupt, but a lot of times you're not actually there for the dialogue. And so you actually have to be a reporter and you have to ask the people, what did you say? What did he say? What did you say? What did he say? And then you get the actual quotations and you fit it together in your scene.
I like it. Jen, do you have anybody weighing in there?
Dave, is that true if you're telling the story of someone else?
Yeah. As a reporter, I write about things that happened earlier in the day, like it'd be a murder. So I will go interview the mom about her murdered child. And I will say to her, what did you say to him? What did he say to you? What did you say to him? What did he say to you? And I get the exact dialogue back and forth. And so you just have to ask the questions. So yeah, it works very, very well with conversations that you're not there. And it's what we call journalism. And so when speakers and communicators use these tactics, their communication skills just rise to such a high level.
Thank you.
Wow, that's pretty powerful stuff. Now, one of the things you said is number 3 was a strong point of view.
So in our world, I don't think it's worth being mishmash, half-assed. I think it's important to be like really powerful and strong. And one of the ways to tell stories that are powerful and strong is to tell them through the eyes of one of the characters, as if you're in their head and you're looking out and you're seeing it like they see it. So you ask them, what are you thinking of? What do you feel? What do you remember? What were you wearing? What was the temperature? What did you eat? And you really begin to see it from their point of view, and then you tell it from their point of view. That's a sophisticated writing technique that works all the time because the audience is going, wow, I wonder how he knew that. That's so real and intense. I love that. That's the reaction, the gut visceral reaction you get for that.
I can learn so much from you, Dave. I can't wait to see you again.
Well, ditto, Jane. I mean, I've learned a ton from you, so I'm glad to hear it's going back the other way.
So when you sit in a convention, and you sit through speaker after speaker after
Well,
speaker.
it's very rough.
Yeah, it must be. And even when you read all these blogs every day, you've told me a little bit about your process and how you write, and I think, oh my gosh, I put so little thought into it compared to what I should be doing. Tell me what you think maybe the most common mistakes you might see being made, just in broad strokes. What do you think they
Okay.
are?
So we're talking about writing now, writing that story out, right?
Well, it could be, I'm really talking about when you're sitting at the conference and you're watching the speaker after speaker. What do you really think that are some
Well,
of the mistakes?
being a professional speaker has sort of ruined me to listen to other speakers because I know what they're supposed to be doing and how to do it effectively. And most speakers that I listen to don't really know how to do it. So it's gotten very frustrating for me. I gave a TED talk on the power of storytelling, and I had to sit through the entire day of listening to other people's TED talks. And it wasn't a happy day for me because it was 8 hours of torture listening to professors of chemistry and physics try and talk in English.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time, and it's like that in politics when I listen to politicians. The ones who tell stories, who use dialogue, are very effective. The ones who just yell at you are not very effective. In politics, the winner is always the one with the best story because the voters love the story. We could analyze that forever, but that's how it works. People love the story.
Wow, you must be really reeling during these elections, this election season.
Yeah.
Ah.
Bullet points. I want to just mention bullet points because when we actually think about how we're going to communicate, we always start off with the bullet points, the facts. And sometimes people just spit out the facts. But then you got to say, how do I take the facts? How do I take the bullet points and turn them into a story in which the bullet points and facts are woven in artfully, but it's still a story framework and not a bullet point framework. Right. That's crucial. That's probably the most important thing I can share with you today. Down with bullet points, down with PowerPoint, up with storytelling.
That could be a bumper sticker, Dave. So in terms of these people that you might have seen during the TED Talks, would you say that they lacked craftsmanship on their speeches? Yeah,
they were telling, not showing. They were telling us the information they wanted us, but they weren't showing us by putting us in the middle of their story, So it's frustrating. And I coach, I ran a TED Club at my NSA chapter in North Texas.
That's cool.
And I taught them, just like when you get up there, if you want to hold your audience, the very first thing you have to do is jump into a story with a scene. And then they know right away that you're not going to be like all the other speakers that are boring them. You're going to be different. You're going to be better. And this is going to be worth paying attention to. And they kind of lean forward. And when you get humor involved with that too, then they start to laugh and smile. And when you see the audience laughing and smiling at you, it's a real empowering feeling, and you know that you're on the right path and you can keep going forward.
Jen, are you getting any hearts over there on Periscope for this?
Getting some hearts and getting some notes about great advice, anxious to use this on their next talks. Dave, do you find that some speakers, it's kind of awkward to go into that? It can feel awkward when you're moving into those stories and playing it out, but when you see other people doing it, it really does make a difference. How do you get them through that awkwardness?
Well, when you say awkwardness, I'm thinking about the left brain people who are the engineers, who are the literalists, and they're the ones that mostly have the problem doing this because they're so technical and they, I can't do that. I have to give the specs on the electrical product, So I think the science people have a big hard time. I think that's why sports does so well in America, because it's a story with a beginning and a middle and end, and people understand it. But science is very confusing to people because it doesn't have a beginning and a middle and an end. It's continuous, and we never really know, what the resolution of a science story is because it changes all the time. So that's one problem that I've noticed, is that scientific people have a tough time doing this. But I don't think that's what you meant, Jen, in the question.
It's interesting to know different personalities play a part into that, but I'm thinking, especially if you've not done it before, I've been to workshops where they take you through and make you go up on stage and actually do it, and you're kind of like, this feels weird if you've never done it. It feels very awkward, but once you see the difference, it's pretty amazing. How do you get people past that awkwardness? I watched you do it, and it's like, well, Dave's a professional. He's beyond awesome at this. But when you're actually doing it, it can feel different.
Yeah, well, it's like everything else. The first time feels awkward, but by the second and third time, it starts to feel better. And when you actually do it in front of an audience and you see the visceral reaction of positivity from them, the smiling, the laughing, the focus, then you know that you're on the right track. But let's see. I guess.
Would rehearsing or something like that get you past some of
repetition? Repetition. Yeah, I mean, I've given over 1,000 talks, and so the repetition of the different patterns has really helped me lock into the way I want to describe stuff. You don't see that right now because right now we're actually just having a good conversation, but generally I have the patterns of the speech, laid out in a way that people like to hear it with rhythm, like a comedian, where he has very rhythmic speaking, and it's very easy to listen to because it's it's like a song, and that it's very easy for the ear to pick this up. I'm in tune with what the ear likes to hear, and I'm in tune with what the eye likes to hear. The way I deal with the eye is I don't give people one long paragraph. I split it up into many little paragraphs, so there's a lot of white space in the indent, and it doesn't look like a giant copy block. It looks like it's more like a dialogue back and forth. And I use those little tricks to get people to relax and to take in what I'm saying or writing.
So would you say that maybe you've crafted out your presentation and then you have it kind of in your bones so that when you go and deliver it, it just sounds like a conversation? Do you try, is that the goal, is to get so that it just sounds like you're having a conversation, while you're sitting at dinner with a friend?
Yes, and I think one person who did that really well was Rudy Giuliani. I remember he gave a speech at a Republican convention where you thought that he was actually talking to you as opposed to reading a speech off a teleprompter. And I found that really effective. And so, yeah, I actually made a little mistake in a talk last year in Edmonton that was really interesting. I lost my place in my mind, and I rolled it back a couple of sentences, and I started it again. And later on, a speaker told me, she said, it sounded really conversational, but then when you rolled it back, then I knew you had a script in your head and you were.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot from that.
That's really interesting.
So it's pauses really help you, and you just stop and you're thinking and you go into it. Those kind of little.
Yeah. And if you do lose your spot, you can really say, now, where was I? And then they'll tell you, and then you continue on from there. I love someone who's flawed.
Yeah.
I think my favorite people are flawed.
Yeah, you're right. Because if you share with the audience your momentary lapse, it makes you more human.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot where I was. And especially, doing something like this late in the day. I'm impressed that you are as sharp as you are this late in the day. It's late for me. All my brain power has been used up earlier. So let me ask you, we are going to have you in to our Accelerate 2016 event in Dallas. It's on January 29th and 30th. Myself, you, Jen will be there. Lou Heckler, who we were interviewing this afternoon, and we're going to do some deeper dives into story. You have kind of like a graph. What do you call your graph of the storytelling flow?
It's called Dave's V-shaped storytelling formula. And it looks like this: straight line, and then a V, and then a curlicue.
Yeah.
A beginning and a middle and an end of a story. And going down to the low point of the story, the hero knocking the villain all the way down, and then the hero overcoming and rising up to the climax of the story.
Lovely. So you'll be sharing that. You'll be sharing that with us in Dallas.
Yeah, because I think it changes the way people communicate it. They understand that if I communicate like that in a V, people will actually pay attention to me. They'll remember what I'm telling them. They'll support me. They'll talk about me. They'll donate. They'll buy.
Wonderful.
They'll care.
Wonderful.
It leads to emotion and passion and involvement and engagement. It's really a powerful tool.
I love
that's
it.
How I write my stories for the newspaper, and that's how I give my talks too.
Wow. So let's talk about writing just for a second, and then I'll tell everybody a little bit about the event, and then we'll sign off.
Okay.
When you write, you have a process. So from beginning to end, you're putting something in the paper. So obviously it's going to take more time than one of my silly little blog posts. But what's your process?
Well, so I compile a lot of information in a folder. the more information I have in the folder, the more confident I am because I've learned all these facts.
Okay.
And then I sit down and I turn those facts into a story. And I write my heart out, and I write it with the reader in mind. I imagine the reader sitting there reading the newspaper. And then I edit it the hell out of it. And that's the key part of writing, is the rewriting. And that's where most people drop the ball. They think when they're done, they're done. But I have this very elaborate editing procedure which eliminates all the bull from my story and puts the minimum word usage and everything. And I'll just go over with you because I really like the way it works for me. First thing I do, of course, is edit it on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Then I edit it on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And then I send it to my phone, and I edit it off my phone looking at the digital version of it. And then I edit it backwards from the bottom up because it's out of context. And each paragraph is like its own separate, unique entity. And then, of course, I read it again from the top down, and then I'm pretty much done. Oh, I read it out loud.
You print it. Did you say you print it?
Print it because it looks different on paper than it does on a screen.
Yeah.
And then also I will read it out loud, and at the end, and when I read it out loud, it's like I missed all these things in all the other procedures, and I catch it because the ear picks up on mistakes and words that are wrong and extraneous verbiage that you don't need. The ear picks it up. And so all those different techniques allow me to write like a really sleek, lean writing machine. Which is what I view myself as a writer.
I know you're blowing Jen's mind here.
Do you do something similar to your talks as well?
No, because I don't write out my talks. They're in my head. And
really? That's very interesting to me. How can you craft a talk without actually writing it out and remember it?
Well, I have like an outline maybe of some words that it would be, and then I would practice in front of live audiences where I'd see what worked, and then the next time I'd throw that out and add something else, and just using my live audiences as focus groups to create whatever it is I'm doing. Watching their faces and listening to their reaction and then hearing what they say afterwards.
Wow. Very interesting. Jen, have we got any questions? Maybe we'll just take a pause here for questions. And while we're waiting for people to ask their questions on Periscope, we may get some, we may not. That's okay. I want to let you know that, as I've said, we have Accelerate 2016. It's a 2-day event in Dallas. We're going to be doing some presentation skill work on day 1 and a lot of really solid business growth work on day 2. And the people who sign up for the showcase level will get to work with Dave and Luke Heckler, and they will get to showcase for some speakers bureaus and for some agents who will actually be in the room on day 2. So, Dave, I'm absolutely thrilled that you're going to be there. People on the earlier one were asking where should they go if they want to get more information. Go to speakerlauncher.com and click on events and sign up for the advanced notification. So you'll get notified. We're just getting ready to roll things out this month. We'll go to our VIPs first, and then we'll go on from there. But Dave, I'm thrilled that you're going to be there with us. It's going to be really, really fun.
Well, it's an honor to me to share with Lou Heckler, who is the finest speaker storyteller in America today. And the fact that you got him to do this event really says how high quality this event is, because Lou is number one. Absolutely. There's no question in my mind about that.
I'm excited. And I think Jen has a question for us, Jen?
You see the hand going up a little bit. We had a question around PowerPoint, Dave. You use it or not use it?
I apologize to that person for offending them right off the bat, because I'm sure they were offended by that comment. But go on.
They just want to know, should you use it or shouldn't you use it?
Yeah, you can use it, but you got to be really careful how you use it. And you can't let it be the star. You have to be the star, which is why I don't use it. I want to be focused. I don't want to share it with something else. I don't want a distraction up there. But I know that a lot of people use it and they use it well. The ways that people use it poorly, though, are they put too many words on one screen. You know, Jeffrey Gittermer taught us you only need to put 4 or 5 words on a screen, black type on white background with maybe just red focus keywords. And I believe in that. But I don't see that. What I see is people putting an entire law up on a screen and expecting us to read it in the audience, you know, or something like that. But when a speaker talks about his kids and then shows a picture of his kids or shows a formula, you know, or something like that, that's helpful to the audience, I think that's great. But I don't think it's necessary, and I think people use it as a crutch. And especially when I go to an event, it seems like they're struggling with their computer and their PowerPoint. And then when it doesn't work, they get up there and they have to use their first 2 minutes, which is prime real estate in speaking, to like mess with the machine. I hate seeing that. And that happens like 60-70% of the time.
Wow.
No, I apologize. We missed a message or a question that came in about the Dallas event about attending with their spouse. So if you ask that, feel free to ask it again. But Jane, are folks going to have a chance to say hi to you? I mean, is it going to be a 60,000 seat stadium?
Oh, that's such a great question, Jen, because actually, no, we have it'll be a very small, intimate gathering. You will be with me. You'll be so sick of me by the end of it. We'll be together for the whole time, and my maximum is about 60 people, actually. So just FYI, we're not looking for the big, massive event. We're looking to have a really intimate crowd. And my goal, by the way, we'll start together in Dallas for the 2 days, and then we're together for the entire year. So that's why we don't want to have too many people. We really want to see people take their strategy that they started at the event in January and follow it through for the year. The whole theme is accelerate. So that's the goal. And thank you for asking that, Jen.
Yeah, so we get to work with people on a close basis, and that's going to be fun. That's going to be life-changing for people, I hope.
I think so.
You know, Jane, I think you had mentioned it in one of your blog posts, is that one of the powerful things about this event is the connections.
And what I recognized when I went to Washington this past summer for the National Speakers Association was that one of my, if I were to label my biggest strength, it really is my relationships. And so I thought, well, why not use those relationships? I've been wanting to do an event for years. Why not bring all the coolest people I know into the room? And that's what I've done. And I mean, there's still a long list of people that won't be in the room, but at the same time, boy, there will be some serious power there.
I like being on the coolest people in the room list, so thank you for that.
You've made it to the table, Dave.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy to be a part of this, because this is how I think people get better. When they get with a bunch of other people who care about the same things that we do, and then we share what we do, it's really the most empowering way to improve and be successful. So thank you.
Totally agree. Well, listen, we're going to wrap up here. If anybody's interested in seeing all of us in Dallas on January 29th and 30th, go to speakerlauncher.com and click on our events page, and you'll see Accelerate 2016 there. You can sign up for advance notice. And for now, we'll say we'll see you soon, Wealthy Speakers. Bye for now, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.